from he to she or from she to he. You can use new ones like z, or create your own like tree. Some people use they. There are many more pronouns waiting to be discovered and used. The red, a crayon story. This is for pre-K through first grade. Everyone thinks the crayon is red because of its outside label, but really the crayon is blue because that's what's on the inside. The lesson plan tells students to share an inward identity not easily seen by others. For example, someone who looks at me may think I'm a girl, but I'm non-binary and my pronouns are they and them. Non-binary is defined as people who do not feel like a girl or boy. They may feel like they're both or neither. This is for pre-K through first grade called Neither. It's a parable about unlimited genders. It says, once upon a time there were two kinds, this and that. But now there are many kinds, this, that, sort of, just, somewhat, whatnot, rather, a little, either, very, neither, and both. And all are welcome. Just one more real quick, because this one was, they sent out free to any teacher that wanted it. I got a whole case for free, 32 books for my class, for grades K through 5. This book calls Vice President Mike Pence by name boring and not fun. It calls legislative officials who supported Proposition 8 mean stink bugs. Wow. And shows kids how to vote and kick these stink bugs out of office. This is going into political indoctrination.
Thank you. All right, Netta, this next one is for you. We'll start off with you. The question is this. If you opt your child out in writing and the school still includes your child, what is the recourse?
The recourse is a lawsuit because the California Healthy Youth Act, as much as we dislike it, it does give parents the right to opt out of all or part. And so if you opt out in writing, you have the right as a parent to have your kid put in a different classroom or receive alternative instruction. And so if those rights are violated, then legal action is necessary. And it can start with a letter to the school district to see how that happened. Was it a mistake? Is there a policy that they can make sure it doesn't happen again? Or was it willful and intentional? And do we need to file a lawsuit to enforce parental rights? And so definitely please call our office. We offer these services pro bono for free, so there's no charge to you if you have any questions about opt-out or your rights as a parent. But definitely exercise those rights. And if they're violated, that is what we're here for. That's what I'm passionate about. That's why I wake up every morning. And so we're here for you.
Thank you. Dr. Holmes, we have a question for you. What dangers are there, other than the STDs, the STIs that we talked about tonight, what dangers are there in performing the act of anal sex? You're on.
Well, besides the obvious long-term psychological effects of being involved in that, cancer is one of them. You have human papillomavirus, which is definitely transferred along with all the other sexually transmitted diseases that eventually can cause squamous cell carcinoma. You need your rectum to work for your whole life, and it's not nice when it leaks. And so there's a lot of problems there, but certainly I see young men come in all the time, and they can't believe what's growing on their penis. We see young girls come in, and they have genital warts covering their entire area there, and so it's very challenging to have to live with that the rest of your life, and they can't believe it. And so one just little word to you tonight, I'm going to challenge all of you, is that yes, it's important, very important, that you fight this, okay, that we as parents see that our elected officials and that our schools are doing what we would have them do. But how many of you have not had those conversations with your kids yet? And you really need to get with it, obviously, from what you're hearing tonight. We talk about protecting our kids, and I hope that's extending beyond our kids to all kids, because your kids come in contact with them. And for those of you of faith, they are your mission field. Even these LGBT individuals that I care for. God loves them just as much as your kids, and they need to be reached. Honestly, hearing some of this up here, it's almost hopeless unless there's a revival, and that takes you sharing your faith. And but if you don't know what to do, you can go old school. James Dobson put out Preparing for Adolescence. Obviously, you need to add a few more things. Masturbation was the biggest thing he talked about. But you want to look at some of the other things we're talking about, and really start talking to your kids, because I can't even share with you if your child is 12 and comes to me. I cannot even share with you, the insurance payer, what they are in there to talk about, whether it be birth control, STDs, or what have you. It's against the law if they don't want to be told. So it's time that you become the focus, you become the place they go for answers, and they will bless you for that the rest of their life, because you are the source of their information, not the world around them.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen.
Stephanie, here's a question for you. What books should we watch out for in our local library?
Too many.
Well, I'll tell you, when I search my son's school library, I do keywords: sex, LGBTQ, transgender, inclusive, different things like that. I just use keywords. I have found books in the library. So one of the books actually in the public library was It's Perfectly Normal. And it's for little kids, and it's under the category of sex instructions for children in a public library. Is there not something wrong with that, sex instructions for children? And at my local library, it was on the second to bottom shelf in the kids section, and it has all the graphic sexual acts and bending over and looking at the genitals and everything like that. So there's actually a lot of graphic books in the school too, regular, just sex books, lots of things like that. So you really want to just start searching those things, and they're not safe. I mean, my son used to read all the time. Now he's too busy with sports and homework, but he just devoured books at his library at school, and I can imagine now what he may come across.
If you go to welcomingschools.org, it has all of these, many. This was only just a little step.
Okay. Dr. Gosney, a question for you. Hearing all of these things that are taught from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, what type of psychological ramifications are there for the children?
This is a really big question, and I think a huge concern for me, both as a professional and as a mother. Some of the concerns that are out there are whether our children will know the difference between keeping our privates private and making our privates public. One of the concerns that I have is from one of the books that was mentioned. It's not the stork. I know we've heard a number of quotes out there, but I'm going to just mention this one. Again, this is for first grade curriculum. When grown-ups want to make a baby, most often a woman and a man have a special kind of loving called making love, having sex, or sex. This kind of loving happens when the woman and the man get so close to each other that the man's penis goes inside the woman's vagina. And then they continue to talk about how the sperm exits the tip of the male's penis, goes into the, you guys know the story if you've got kids. Hopefully, even if you don't, you know the story. So I don't need to continue. My concerns are many, one of which is for children who are being sexually abused. This normalizes this behavior. This helps these children, and the picture is innocent but sickening when you're reading it. Actually not innocent at all, I can't even say that. It's got a cartoon of a man and a woman under the sheets together with hearts all around and big grim smiles on their faces. My concern is for children who are being sexually abused who are going to feel loved based on this behavior from an adult. Another concern that was brought up to me is how men can appropriately love their children, their daughters, their sons, without their children questioning, is my dad holding me so tight that his penis is going to enter my vagina? That is a major concern. Men already, we deal with this all the time, is that a lot of men have trouble showing appropriate love to their children because they don't want it to be interpreted as something else. And this brings that about. It brings on confusion for the children. It brings on concerns for the parent on how we can appropriately love our children. And that's so important in a child's development, to be appropriately loved and cared for and touched appropriately by both of our parents there. Personally, for my children, we teach them two huge rules in dealing with adults, is that a safe adult will never ask a child for help. A safe adult will ask another adult for help. The second thing we teach them is that a safe adult will never ask a child to keep a secret. And yet, what is our school system asking our children? To keep a lot of things secret. We're not able to be in the classrooms to say what we want our children to learn or what we don't want them to hear. We're not getting that opt-out questionnaire. There's a lot of things that are being asked of our children, that are being taught to our children, that they are expected to keep private, including there's a curriculum, one of the books used in the curriculum for 5th grade, talks about how, we're not saying that your parent or your religion is wrong, but a lot of children wind up not following what their parents or their religion says, so maybe it was not your choice after all.
Wow.
And so explicitly going in and teaching our children to defy their religion, defy what their parents say. And that's causing a lot of confusion for kids. My last point being that for a child who, I laugh at the non-conforming to genders. I was a tomboy growing up. My oldest child is a tomboy. I even hate that word. I don't know why I'm using it. I loved playing with salamanders. I loved playing in dirt. I had a creepy crawler machine instead of an easy bake oven. And had someone come to me in my classroom, the teacher who I looked up to very, very much, and said, you don't seem to follow typical gender norms. You're not the girl with the bow in your hair. You're not wearing a dress, and your favorite color is green instead of pink. You might really be a boy, and that is up to you to choose. That causes great confusion in these kids. And Erickson's developmental stages, we've all learned them as educators, mental health professionals, perhaps some of you who are not in those categories. There is a stage called identity versus role confusion, and that is from ages 12 to 18, where really it states that 12 to 18, they don't know what their identity is. They're grasping for straws. Every middle school and high school person is trying to figure out really who they are. Erickson claims that adolescents may feel uncomfortable about their body for a while until they can adapt and grow into the changes. Success in this stage will lead to the virtue of fidelity. Failure to establish a sense of identity within our society can lead to role confusion, which involves the individual not being sure about themselves or their place in society, which leads to an identity crisis, where an adolescent may begin to experiment with different lifestyles if that stage of their development is not accurately met. So let's love on our kids. Let's teach our kids the right way. Let's teach our kids that safe adults don't ask our children to keep secrets. Safe adults don't ask a child for help. Be that person for your child, because even if your child's not in the public school system, your child is being taught by someone somewhere, hearing rumors, hearing from different children, these things that are being taught. And so our children need to be able to come to us. We need to be able to protect them and keep them safe so that they can have their identity, they can function, and they can contribute and give back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
She's talking about 12 to 14-year-olds, but in the curriculum, we're starting in talking about gender issues, in kindergarten. And I think almost as bad is the section I was reading for the parents. A lot of parents are not rooted and grounded. They kind of go where things go. You don't want to feel out of it You know, you don't want to feel like you're behind the times when everybody's talking about this gender or that gender, and I should really expose my kids to that, and they've heard about it. And so now you're making that more of the norm for the parents. And they're now even more open to this. And as long as we keep getting fed stuff over and over and over, sooner or later it becomes true. You believe that it's a woman's right to do with her body what she wants to do with her body. Well, there's no science to that. It's not her body. There's no fingerprint, no DNA of that child inside of her. It's not her at all. But if you hear it enough, you begin to accept it if you don't think about it. It's all a miracle when the baby comes out. As long as that baby hasn't quite exited, even if it's just his head and you sever his spinal cord, it's not real. It's just magic. It's now becoming life. Well, now you're dealing with these children that are being told to think about who they are, male or female, and now you're allowing them, the parents, to think, parents will fret over every little thing for their kid. And so as they're watching their child sort of struggle and think, get through their identity, now they're able to offer them hormones to change. And who makes that decision? Actually, the child. So you have 13-year-olds determining that they're going to become a male. Now, the people that I've worked with, they are adults, and they decided as adults to make this decision, right? And whether I agree with it or not, they were adults. But what we're seeing now is that this is heading downhill, and you're going to cut off puberty with hormones, stop them from having puberty at the time that would help them, right? Their hormones would help them figure out who they are, because you're going to get a surge of testosterone, and you're going to get very interested in girls most of the time. And 90% of the time, this is figured out early on. But you're going to cut that off, and you're going to make it look like it's the cool thing to do if you're a parent outside of this kind of a rooted organization. So it's very, very dangerous what's going on right now, as far as I can see, for kids and their psyche. And some of this stuff is very, very permanent. And we don't even know about their brain development because of these drugs that they would be offered and cutting short and not allowing them to go through puberty.
Right, absolutely. The next question, thank you, by the way. The next question, I'm going to throw this to you, Stephanie. The question, and then I'm going to throw this one to you, but then also follow this up, whoever wants to on the panel, to talk about briefly SB 673. But the question is, from whom do we demand to see the curriculum?
You want to call your district office, not your principal or school, because at the district office, they make the decisions there. It's the curriculum specialist. They may have different words for it. So what you want to do is you want to call the district office, tell them you want to talk to the person in charge of the curriculum that makes the curriculum decisions. They may tell you that you need to call your school district or your school and tell them no, you make those decisions there. You have to go through a whole curriculum process of going through different curriculums, going through the school board. There's a whole process. So they do that there. So they know exactly what curriculum they're using. It doesn't depend on each individual school district or each individual teacher like they want to tell you. And what you want to tell them, and if you have a pen and a paper right now, you want to write this down. You want to ask them, what are you using right now to teach comprehensive sexual education, AB 329, that covers sexual orientation, gender identity, STI, STD, or ST, they say STI, prevention, HIV prevention, pregnancy prevention. You want to ask them, what are you doing to teach anti-bullying and suicide, because they're doing that too. And then you want to tell them, I want the teacher's manual with your teaching. I want any videos, any supplements, anything at all that you're using in any class at all, inside or outside of sex ed. They will teach sex ed in health, science, PE. It just depends on your school district or your school. That would change per school too. So those are the things you want to ask them. If they try to give you the runaround, you have the right to ask for the curriculum, and they have to show it to you. And it doesn't have to be in that small little period that they tell you. And now if they give you a little tiny packet like this much, these curriculums are almost 300 pages, so it's a big binder. So don't let them fool you. I got really excited when, just like that, I called and they said, yeah, sure, come on in. And 2 days later, I went in and I walked out with a little packet. And then I went through it and I realized, oh, this is a student workbook and the PowerPoint presentation. So I had to go back and ask, and they didn't want to give it to me. So they give you a runaround. They'll tell you all kinds of things. On average, I spent a minimum of 1 hour trying to get the curriculum name because they don't want to give it up.
Our office did a public records request to the Marietta School District, and we weren't given any information. My assistant, Desiree, called in to ask the same question, and it's just a lack of transparency. Not to say that, they're teaching some of this material or whatnot, but why not have the instruction available? Why not put it on their website? Why not show parents exactly what it is? Why is it so difficult for us as community members, as taxpayers, as parents, to examine this curriculum, to be involved in the process? There's several laws that say parents have the right, as mutually supporting partners in education, to have input in the curriculum process. One of those is Education Code 60002, which grants parents the rights to look at the curriculum, and you can make copies of it, you can take pictures, but yet it's so difficult, even in our communities, in our local communities.
And the law says that they have to give it to you, and even you have the rights to have copies, even if they charge you about 10 cents. So I've heard some districts say, oh, well, you could choose 20 pages, or something like that. Or they want to charge you like $200. Take an aroma paper and say, here you go, here's paper, make me a copy of the curriculum.
And the ed code that Netta just quoted, it actually says not just parents, but it says community members. Remember, you're the taxpayers. Remember that you're the one paying for public education. So you have the right, you don't have to be a parent, you have the right to go look at that curriculum. You're paying for it. You elected those board members.
So real quick, just want to talk about SB 673. Pastor Tim mentioned that one. So we've been working with Informed Parents of California and Senator Mike Morrell on passing a bill that's right now in a two-term legislation, 2-year legislation. So it's going to come back up in January of 2020. And this bill is important because we're trying to incrementally fight back. Okay, 2 things. Number 1 is we are trying to change AB 329 to state that an opt-in will be required for K through 6. We won't get K through 12th grade opt-in, but at least for our most vulnerable children, we can make this an opt-in. So number 1, it takes the K through 6th grade and it turns comprehensive sexuality education into an opt-in. The second thing that it does is it mandates that all of this material, K through 12, be available online on the website. Everything, the instructional material for the students, the teachers' handbooks, any videos. We don't need to go and research all of this stuff. It should be there at the tip of our fingers.
How many of you are PTA involved in the PTA? Okay, just so you know, the bill that he just mentioned increases parental rights. PTA opposed that bill.
All right, we have time for one final question. I'm going to give this to you, Netta. Why is it that nobody has sued the CDE for exposing the children to child pornography?
Well, what you saw today in the curriculum, that is pornographic, it's obscene. If I were to just go out there and find a child and show it to them, I could be arrested, and I very well should be. However, the criminal code section that penalizes child pornography has an exception, and it states that if material is used for medical, scientific, or educational purposes, or in an educational setting, then there is an exemption. So in those classrooms, these teachers and the legislators are exempt from this material that really is child pornography. And it's a travesty that they can be exempt. Those are the adults that we trust our kids with, and yet if you even just mail that to a random house and a child looks at it, you can be criminalized. So I think that it should be, the California Department of Education and any teacher who decides to show that to kids should be penalized, but there is an exception, and there's a lot of immunity from liability when it comes to teachers.
All right, thank you so much, guys. Please give them a... All right, to close the night out, I just want to welcome up Pastor Jim Billman of Church United, and he has a couple of closing points to share with you. Pastor Jim, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to close out in prayer at my knees, because this is really serious stuff. And if you don't make it a habit of getting on your knees, this is stuff we really need to cry out to the Lord. If you guys can put a picture of thanking my family up there. I'm a former homosexual. I didn't have any of this stuff presented to me as a child. Thank you. This is God's restoration.
Amen.
Amen.
This is the first time I've heard this presentation, and I'm totally blown away. And what amazes me is that what they're teaching you it's so contrary to what God's design is for man, woman, and sexuality. They're teaching homosexual sex upon heterosexual sex. It's abhorrent. It is evil. It is fornication. It is sinful. I was one. That's what I wore when I was washed by the blood of Jesus. I'm not here not saying perfect or I've got it all together, but I do know we have a Savior, his name is Jesus, and this content was very explicit. And I don't know how it affects your heart or your mind, but I'm going to pray God's protection over you, that you steward this wisely, and that you be protected. It's brought up at things from your past, you've been sexually abused, and things that you have done or you've thought about. I just want to pray protection over you and your children. Because he that is in us is greater than he that is in the world. As Revelation says, we have triumphed by the word of their testimony, the power of the blood, the power of the blood and the word of their testimony. So you join me in praying tonight. God, you are greater than evil. You are greater than sexual perversion. You're the creator of man. You're the creator of woman and sexual intimacy. God, California is in desperate need of your son Jesus. It is the wickedest state in the union, and this stuff is beyond wicked. And I just ask that your people would rise up, that we would stand for justice, that we would stand up for these little children, kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. This is my family up here, from our Christmas photo this past year. I can't even envision my children being exposed to such perversion. God, would you awaken men to be men?
Yes.
And quit being wusses and silent like we were in the garden? Mm-hmm. Lord, thank you for the women who were bold enough to talk about topics that need to be discussed. But God, tonight, these topics are it's just the opposite of what you're designed for healthy, beautiful sexuality is. Forgive me for my evil thoughts and fallen thoughts. Thank you that you restore us into righteousness and right behavior. So Lord, I pray for every man, woman in this room, that the blood of Jesus would continue to cleanse their hearts and their minds, and you would protect them from the evil that we heard tonight. What is being indoctrinated to children in all of our public schools by law. God, let a board member stand up and say, this is wrong, we're not going to tolerate it, take us to court until we change the laws of the state that will protect the little minds. Lord, Romans says you will destroy us. You will give us into destruction. Lord, we beg and we ask for your mercy that that does not happen. That we would be a generation that would intercede for these little ones, and they would not grow up with such perversion. So I just ask the blood of Jesus wash our eyes, our hearts, and our minds. And Lord, we leave this at the cross, and we walk in holiness and purity and restoration, even if we've messed up in our past. Thank you for being a God of love. Thank you for being a God who loves any sinner who doesn't know you. Move in us. Let us hear your voice. Let us be Jesus to a lost and dying world and be that grace and that mercy. Always season with truth. In the all-powerful name of Jesus and all God's people said, Amen. Amen.
All right, this concludes our event tonight. Thank you so much for coming out. I want to remind you, if you've got children out in the kids area out there, please make sure you get them right away. I know you probably want to hang out here and get some of your questions answered, but get your children first. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.